Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Pope Metallicus, and welcome back to Rock and Roll Religion. It's been a couple of weeks, but we're back. We had some stuff going on in the background that I either couldn't or didn't have an idea for a show, and we're glad to be back. And this one is, one of my favorite records. It's my favorite band of all time. It's Judas Priest, and one of their lesser known records, and I think unfairly so. And here to help me talk about that is the other greatest Judas Priest fan on this channel, the one and only laser-guided, commie-killing steel eagle of death, the Sentinel. How's it going, my dude?
Hail, thank you for the intro. I am equal to you, the biggest Judas Priest fanboy of all. But you got me beat today because you're wearing a Judas Priest t-shirt, and I happen to have my Wasp 40th anniversary tour t-shirt on.
Yeah, see, that's where I get you. I got like four of
you
these.
Got me. You got me.
But no, man, thanks for being here. And this one's a video we've talked about doing for a long, long time.
Yep.
Because we're both big fans of this record.
Yes.
And think it is unfairly maligned for the most part. We'll get to some of the ones that aren't.
There are some albums from the 70s that are weaker than this album that are talked about as if they're better than this album. I'm thinking, except wait. So you're saying Rock-A-Rolla is a better album?
I mean,
than Point of Entry.
Saying that they should probably get checked because I think they're nursing a brain tumor somewhere,
something like that,
or possibly have permanent hearing damage. But yeah, man, there are so many albums that are worse than this in their discography and don't get the hate that this does.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put this up there with their absolute best, their British Steels, their Hellbent for Leathers, or Screaming for Vengeance.
No, it's more.
It's a solid mid tier for them.
Yeah, it's in the. I would say it's in like. Okay, let me think of a couple albums off the top of my head. All right, I would say Ram It Down. Ram It Down. Yeah, Ram It. It's in the Ram It Down. I'm not a big fan of Jugulator, but I'll put Jugulator there.
Credit where it's due. It's not a bad record.
It's not. It has some good stuff on it. The industrial elements really kind of kill it for me a little bit.
Yeah.
I like Bullet Train. I'm the only Priest fan who doesn't like Cathedral Spires from that album. I just don't give a fuck. It's like, okay.
It's all right. I mean, it's one of those things. It's almost like some of the later Maiden stuff where it's like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, but I don't really care either.
Burn in Hell, that's
a good track.
That's a good track. That's classic radio accessible Priest right there.
And that's one thing this album does really well. A lot of this is very, I don't want to say too commercialized, but very similar to British Steel in that it's very tightly packaged. None of the songs are over long. I don't think there's many of them that are over 5 minutes. And they're all very tightly packed and very radio friendly to an extent, where a lot of them have very catchy riffs. A lot of them have very easy lyrics to sing along to, all of which, kind of correlates with mainstream radio play, which I don't know how much of this record got. I know for a fact Heading Out to the Highway did, because you'll still hear it.
Yeah, Hard Rockin' did.
Hard Rockin' is another one I would suspect does, and probably Desert Plains at the time. That seems like a rock radio kind of song.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just trying to remember because I got so much in my mind. I got confused for a minute between Solar Angels and Desert Plains.
Solar Angels is another one I wouldn't count out, but that's a little more.
Oh yeah, Solar Angels is not the radio friendly one. That's like for the priest fans.
Yeah, that's one of our songs.
That's one of our songs. Absolutely.
Like the guys who own the record really dig Solar Angels and Thunder Road, but the mainstream radio is probably not going to love them as much.
Yeah, the guy with the mixtape has Hot Rockin' and Desert Plains. The guy with the album has.
Yeah, and this is really unfortunate because there's a lot of underrated tracks on this record.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's I guess I made all the way to the slideshow already. But yeah, I mean the album art, it's there. It's not fantastic. Either album cover isn't the most awesome thing of all time, but this one grabs me for some reason.
It's phallic in a way.
It is, but it's also like it's just mysterious enough. Like, okay, what's going on here? But it's not. It's much better than the original art, which is just a road in the desert.
I wouldn't have mind the road in the desert.
I mean, I don't mind it, but it's just kind of one of those. Okay, whereas Priest is famous for their like very artistic, very stylized covers. So
You don't get
this, I
any.
think, fits a lot better than the original.
I feel like this has some Metallica Reload vibes as far as the album art goes.
Well, I mean, it would be more fair to say that this or Metallica's Reload has Point of Entry vibes. Because
Absolutely.
this album came out like a full decade before Reload did.
I spoke some blasphemy right there. I don't know what I was thinking.
But yeah, this is, again, I think this is unfairly maligned, being the unwanted bastard child between British Steel and Screaming for Vengeance, two of Priest's all-time classics. And I think there wasn't an album you could come out with that was going to hold up to those two.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not just talking two of, their best records. We're talking two of the greatest heavy metal records ever recorded.
Yeah. At least a top 25. Those two are in the top 25 greatest heavy metal records of all time.
I mean,
one
I'll
of
put
them,
Screaming for Vengeance up there as the greatest album
yes,
ever recorded.
Top 3 at least. I don't give a shit how drunk I am.
So you can make an argument for Defenders or Screaming, but they're both right the fuck up there.
I would make the argument I would make is Defenders loses steam as it ends. You could say that a little bit with Screaming, but it doesn't, because it ends with Devil's Child, which is.
I was gonna say, I mean, Fever and Devil's Child are both absolute fucking bangers.
But only British Steel ends with Steeler, and that's a very. If you can start really strong and finish really strong, and almost like the same place, and have that balanced album with hits,
and there's really only a couple of songs I would kind of call like Red, White, and Blue is not the greatest one ever, but I still love the message behind that song.
Yeah.
And United is kind of generic, but I still love the message, and I love the anthemic sound behind it. So, like, it's not a perfect record, but it's damn close. Like, they have some great shit on there, including some of their deeper tracks, like You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise, which has one of the best fucking riffs on that record.
Yeah.
And everything on that record is eminently, listenable from even a standard, normie view of, like, Breaking the Law or Living After Midnight or even Rapid Fire.
Right.
It's all fairly normal, fairly straight ahead hard rock with metallic elements, but
Grinder too.
Grinder's another one that you could, although knowing Rob's sexual orientation, that song has a whole nother, or the lyrics behind that song have a whole nother meaning now, and
it's genius because he wrote lyrics that
at the time. Now it's just kind of cringeworthy.
Well, that's the genius of Rob Halford. That's the genius of Rob Halford, though. It's like
he was saying it to the people who were hearing it,
right?
So everybody,
the people who knew Rob was gay, that's what they were picking up on. See that? Yeah, it's Rapid Fire, pounding the world like a battering ram.
Yeah, that's true. Even some of the stuff on Ram It Down or Hard as Iron.
Ram It Down, you got a fist, and then
that's one of the.
Between the hammer and the anvil,
and the rest of us go well out of our way to avoid knowing.
Right.
But again, like you say, that's a very genius writing style, and there's some stuff on like that on here too. Hot Rockin' especially.
Oh my God! Even the video was.
The video is homoerotic as fuck.
There's parts of it that absolutely are, but they're entertaining. The whole video itself is entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, the video itself is not openly whatever, but like if you know, like once that late, like it's not like half of the stuff Queen did where everyone knew Freddie was gay. Rob was much more subtle about it, and like it was kind of one of those. I bet every gay man in the world knew exactly what the way Rob swung from Hellbent for Leather on.
Hmm.
but the rest of us just never questioned it.
Right. You know,
It
because
was
that
just kind of
wasn't.
like, yeah, okay.
I
And
mean, how
then
many
in
at
like
the
the
time?
90s,
How
and then in
many?
the 90s when he came out, everyone went, oh,
Yeah,
oh.
yeah. I was going to say that. Yeah, if how many gay heavy metal fans were there back then to
I
even pick
mean,
up
even
on
back
it?
then, probably a fair number.
Hmm. They didn't
Certainly.
say anything, did they?
Well, probably not. They were probably just quiet like the rest of us. I mean, when you
Yeah.
look at it, metal is already such a like it's the place the outcasts go.
Hmm.
Like, which is why, like, you'll have your nerds and and all the other guys like hanging out in our crowds. You get a fair number of, just the dude bros too, which they're fun. As long as
Hmm.
they're there for the music, they're cool. And yeah, you do get some of the outcasts from certain groups, and it's interesting the composition of the heavy metal fan base. And I wouldn't be willing to doubt that there was a lot of, or that Rob brought a lot of the gay community into heavy metal.
That's true. There might have been
Um,
gay fans who just didn't want to come out because of just,
yeah.
you know, the perception at the time.
And I've actually Soul Assassin. Now that you say that, I've actually heard Rob say that in an interview, talking about I think Hellbent for Leather in those days, and he was basically like, I was going out every night dressed like Glenn from the Village People, and people weren't getting it, which
That's
he's
from
not wrong.
Behind the Music. That was their
Yeah, and
Behind the Music.
yeah, and they're not. He's not wrong. He never really tried to hide it all that well.
They made buttons called "I've been whipped by Rob Halford" and
Yeah,
sold them. Talk about tongue in cheek.
and he had to be. It had to be one of those private jokes that like only he was aware of, because apparently the rest of the band never figured it out either. Um, so that had to be one of those things that like he was laughing at in his head the entire time. Just like, I
Yeah,
cannot believe people aren't seeing it. It's right there.
I think maybe that was a way he dealt with a lot of the. He couldn't be who he naturally is.
I don't know that he did deal with it, because if you look at later in his career, this time into like the Defenders of the Faith and Turbo era, the man was out of control.
He got sober in '86, I know for a fact. So
Yeah,
something
because he
changed.
damn near died. Um, he was taking so many drugs and drinking so much that I don't even know if he knew where he was half the time. And there are guys who can get away with that. Lemmy or Ozzy. That's just how they live. And in the case of Lemmy, did it very well. And was actually a functional adult while having a Jack and Coke with an
How the
R3 the whole
fuck
time.
can you do that? That would have killed me a long time
Oh
ago.
yeah, and there are certain people who can just handle that. I am probably not one of those people, and neither are any of you.
I mean, I aspired to that during my drinking days, but nah, it never.
There's a reason these guys stand out, because they're the few that can actually just do that without either being a raging alcoholic or just dying.
Yeah,
Whereas Lemmy just did it because that's just who Lemmy is. Or in the case of Keith Richards, I'm pretty sure he's had his blood changed out twice now.
I would love to have we got to clone Keith Richards because
I'm not
there's
sure
something.
humanity's ready for another Highlander.
There's something about
Let's face
his
it, he's
DNA.
never going to die.
I mean, that's clearly. Johnny Depp.
Let's face it. I mean, the only thing I agree with the environmental nut jobs is we do need to start thinking about the world that we're going to leave for Keith Richards.
Yeah.
Because that man has outlived us all, and he will be here long after we're gone. But no, I mean, this album, I mean, even getting into the track list here,
It starts out with heading out to the highway.
Immortal Radio Classic. It's the one everyone knows from this song or from this album, and rightly so. It's a great tune. It's fairly catchy. It's got a simple riff. It's easy to sing along with, and it's a great driving song.
Yes.
This entire album, I think, was written in a car.
I would say
driving somewhere.
Absolutely.
Because it just fits that mindset too well. especially the music.
Desert Plains and Solar Angels, especially.
Oh, God, yes. Thunder Road as well.
Yep.
And that's not to say that all of the music on this album is great. You Say Yes and Don't Go are both on here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And that is major slights to it, because you look at the weaknesses of the album that preceded it and the album that came after that. Both of those albums' weakest songs are still stronger than this album's weakest songs.
Well, I mean, when you look at it, British Steel's album, weaker songs are still absolutely lights out in terms of overall Priest. And Screaming for Vengeance straight up doesn't have any.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, okay, not the weakest. I would say the least strong of Screaming.
Yeah, maybe Pain and Pleasure is, but I'd still say that's on the same level as Turn in Circles or Desert Plains.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to really go back and listen to some of these, because
I'd say that it's not that anything on this record other than You Say Yes, which should absolutely have never been done. It was just horrific. But I will say Screaming for Vengeance has pretty much everything on that record is an absolute classic.
Oh man. I was just thinking, they've never played Take These Chains live. I'd love to hear that.
They did.
They did?
I think so. Yeah, they did.
During my lifetime. Have they?
When I saw them.
You get out of really?
I think so. Yeah, it was. Was it that or Bloodstone?
Oh, I think Bloodstone, because I looked at the.
It was Bloodstone. That's right. I was going to say I know it's one of them that they haven't played in a long, long time.
I know for a fact, because I well, not for a fact, but I remember hearing now because
half of that record as the opening to their set.
Right.
Last year, it was fucking awesome.
Yeah, I know, because I looked at the set list of the concert you went to. That was why I was so like, you lucky man.
Yeah, I did. I mean, and I had tickets to the one in April on the first leg of that tour where they played like a lot of their newer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that show got canceled.
Yeah,
I think I wouldn't have bought tickets to the other show anyway, but
yeah, it was good. It was really good the way it happened for you, because you got the better set list, I think.
Oh, I absolutely did.
I got the 2000.
I wouldn't have gone to both of them, because I absolutely would have.
Right, I had to miss the early. Were they on the West Coast? I'm getting
the early 2022 tour leg of the tour was actually even more convenient for me, because the venue they were playing, it was like 10 minutes from me.
Oh.
So I could literally walk there if I wanted to.
I was stuck in fucking the East Bay, and the concert was in March, and they wouldn't lift the fucking jab shit and the mask shit till April 22nd.
Yeah.
So you couldn't go to the venue that they played at in Oakland without being a lab rat, which pissed me off.
Which, I'm looking forward to all that coming back. And the way they're talking, it's going to. I'll tell them to fuck off. I don't care if I'm in the middle of downtown San Francisco. I'm going to tell you to fuck off, and I'm going to live stream it. That's what I did. Hell, I lost my job over it. Beginning of 2022, they were like, "Oh, well, we have to require it," because I was working for a medical company at the time.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, well, our clients want it." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Tell them it just costs you a shipping guy." I'm out. Like, because that's one of those things, like, nobody has the right to tell you what to do with that, ever. But that's the kind of attitude that this era of
heavy metal was about and embodied.
Yeah.
People, how easily these old fucks forget, I
mean, at least I think, Halford and most of the rest of them have never really done it. And we have another guest, speaking of old timers. I'm
talking about Dee Snider when I say old timers, by the way.
And the coolest old man on the internet, although he still doesn't know how to work anything, That 70s rock band. How's it going, my dude?
All right, buddy.
Yeah.
What do you mean I don't know how to work anything? I'm a tech guy. I spent 50 years in tech. I know how to work
You
everything.
look
I'm
like
just
Rob
busy.
Halford right now.
I'm just mad because I keep getting kicked off of your streams randomly because my internet stops working.
It's because your standards are not high enough for me.
Well, that's true.
That's the
Yeah.
problem. Your tech standards are not high enough. You need to work harder at that.
Well, it's because I live in the middle of nowhere now.
Yeah. You need Starlink.
I have Starlink.
Well, you have Starlink. All right.
That's the
Oh,
only
shit.
reason this works at all.
You see, you talk about a guy not knowing how to do anything techie. I've just been spending some time earlier today installing all my mods for Starfield. So, you know.
I wanted
Yeah.
to get
Oh, I mean,
Starlink, but
I love the fact that the remove pronouns mod was the first thing that got removed from
I know.
Nexus mods.
It's like there's
So
someone's
so much
predicting-
for it not being a big deal, I guess.
yeah, it's a big deal, all right, but I don't really care right now. But I haven't noticed anything else in the game that was that bad.
No,
and
other
Bethesda
than that,
games
it's
have had lesbian couples before, and they've had all sorts of shit. Yeah,
Yeah, it's one of those. It's no worse than say The Expanse was, where it's just kind of there as part of the story. Like, okay,
Yeah, I'm
whatever.
more concerned about the fact they keep removing the nudity mods because I want nudity. I
yeah,
want body morphing mods that can make things.
The important things in a space exploration game,
Exactly. Hey, surely that should be acceptable if pronouns are,
right?
I mean, Pope is my age. We were all hunting down nudes of Laura Croft.
Exactly.
Mhm. We
Yeah.
all searched the internet for that Nude Raider mod for years.
I
only
got
to
all the
find
Mass
out it was a
Effect.
hoax and it never existed.
I got all the Mass Effect ones,
Of course.
because those chicks deserve that, and Witcher 3, and anyway.
Yeah, Bowman. Glenn Tipton is my favorite guitar player of all time. He's the reason I became one. I mean, the man is just lights out on everything he does.
Absolutely.
Same thing with Ken Downing. I mean,
They
the
complement each
combination of
other.
them, I don't think you can find a better guitar duo anywhere. And I'll include Dave Murray and Adrian Smith on that list.
Yeah, me too.
They're at the
See,
very least
that's a
equal.
whole
Murray and Smith.
debate of its own.
Murray and Smith are excellent players, but they're not like KK and Glenn, because KK and Glenn are excellent songwriters individually.
And they're much
You
more
look at
in tune with each other musically, where they feel like two halves of a whole.
Right.
Songwriting.
You got Glenn, who's the more technical
solo
guy.
crafting team.
Right. You got Glenn,
Whereas
who's more. Sorry, go
Adrian
ahead.
and Dave, like you can tell which parts are Dave and which parts are Adrian. Glenn and KK, good luck, unless you know the specific tuning they use. Good
Well, I
luck
can
figuring out
recognize-
which.
I can recognize KK and Glenn specifically a lot of the
Well,
time.
yeah, but it takes a while to develop an ear for which one writes which ways and which one's playing it. And also, if you see them live, occasionally they'll play each other's parts, which I think is great.
I think the comparison when you say the best guitar duo, and I agree, is because I'll take KK over Glenn. I mean, I'll take KK and Glenn over Murray and Smith, and the reason is we saw what happened when those two separated, when one left and the other stayed. So KK has hit 2 home runs with these 2 albums he's put out.
That's true. We
Adrian
will talk
Smith.
about KK's Priest at some point. And
Adrian Smith's album, crickets. Nobody heard about it. Nothing.
And I will say the
then-
Glenn Tipton solo project, while nobody heard about it, it was actually pretty good musically.
Yeah.
It was still a very enjoyable record. And
Just
you know,
can't
like you
believe
say,
it.
KK's Priest. Let's face it, he has a lot of great help in terms of Tim Owens and Ross the Boss. He's got a lot of star power and a lot of really talented guys in that band. But that does not take away from the fact that those albums are absolutely kick ass. On
I can't
Ken's own-
believe for
do it.
guitar duos we're not getting any love for Brian Robertson and Scott Gorham. Come on.
I mean,
I'm Thin Lizzy. I'm a big Thin
All
Lizzy
right,
fan.
all
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, they're great, but we're talking,
I'm talking more metal. I know.
yeah, we're talking the guys who basically created that dual guitar sound for the entirety of the 70s.
Yeah. It's like the difference between stainless steel and iron.
Could argue about that.
Yeah, I mean, 76 really is when you first really start hearing it. You hear
Yeah, the
changes of it on
Lizzy
rock and
Boys-
roll, but
The Thin Lizzy Boys were doing it before that.
that's true. But
That twin lead guitar thing. But anyway.
When did the boys are back in town? When was that written?
74.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's right, yeah.
yeah, they were
That was
doing
Gary
it back
Moore, of course. That was Gary Moore in
then.
Scotland.
Oh, God bless that man. God bless
I
them.
get, yeah. I mean, it's that was a briefer period, and these guys did it for a lot longer. And
Well, I was
Yeah,
going to say
these guys
that
are
harmonized
74
solo.
to 2011.
yeah,
You
they
know that
perfected
harmonized solo in it? Yeah, so that's what Priest does. They were
something
doing.
very beautiful. Yeah, it's a beautiful sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's only part of the reason for this band's success throughout the years is you have Rob Halford as possibly the greatest metal singer of all time. You have Ian Hill, who's a solid, if not all that, spectacular bassist. Like he does his job, and I've never heard him fuck up even once.
His timing.
And Dave Holland's not the best drummer even they've ever had, but he was perfectly serviceable for this era. And he's not Les Binks and he's sure as hell not Scott Travis, but that's not an insult. Those guys are two of the best in the business.
Yeah, I mean, you don't always need to be stellar superstars. I mean, sometimes you just want a rhythm section that can do what's asked of it, and then the magic is happening up front with the guitars and the vocals.
Yeah, and Ian, I love his attitude in that he doesn't want to be part of, like, even though he's the only original member of the band, he just has a job and he does it, and he doesn't want to do anything else. And I guarantee the guys would be perfectly on board with him being on the writing team or whatever if he wanted to, but he just doesn't have an interest in it.
He came up with the intro for the Rage, though.
Yes, he did.
I love that little.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, people sleep on him because he has some pretty interesting bass licks in some of these songs.
Yeah,
it just kind of sneaks in, like the Rage or or a couple of other ones where you have that bass intro. It's just like, ooh, okay, Ian, I see you over there. He's got that kind of almost funk sound to his bass line sometimes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that on this album. It's a very interesting album you've picked because there's a lot of stuff that could almost be regarded as pop rock. There's bluesy rock stuff. There's funky and rhythmic stuff. There's a lot of different sounds on this one. And he's a big part of that.
Kind of
the bass is a big part of it.
They kind of go too far into the other ways with like don't go and you say yes. It's just like, okay, no.
Well, I remember the complaints at the time. Yes.
I think that was them trying to be Duran Duran or Devo or one of those.
You say yes, particularly, yeah.
And but for every one of those, you have a Desert Plains, which is just kind of a thundering blues rock riff throughout.
Yeah,
you have Solar Angels, which is kind of a little more progressive and out there, but still an insanely entertaining song. Then you have your pop rock stuff like Hot Rock and Heading Out to the Highway.
I think Desert Plains is the great track from this album.
I'm having a trouble picking between that, Thunder Road, and Turning Circles.
I'm going to say the best song for me is Hot Rockin', but I'll never forget the guitar harmony on Heading Out to the Highway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't forget it because it's the one that's still around all the time.
Pretty much. Yeah.
But no, I mean, the back half of this album, I think, is a little underrated. There's still some really good stuff on the back half of this record, like All the Way and stuff like that. They're not bad songs. I think they just get overshadowed by the first half. This is very much one of those Priest albums that if you've been around this band for more than 5 minutes, you've run into one that is very A-side heavy.
Yeah, and this is one of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And now you think about it, I mean, that's the sort of, I had it on a cassette and I would play side one and then sometimes I would go to side two and turn it over. It was weird.
And the only real attraction to side B, if you have the vinyl, is Thunder Road, which is a bonus track.
Yeah.
It's not even on some
it wasn't on my edition back in the day.
Oh, I'm straight up referring to not the bonus tracks, the original track listing that was released when the original was put out. So that doesn't have bonus tracks. That is from the remaster. Am I correct or am I wrong?
That's right. And I had ended it on the run in the version I had back in the day.
So the first, when you flip it, wouldn't the first song be Solar Angels? If you on side B?
Yes.
It was, yes.
So yeah, so that would have been the song that would, oh, cool, great start. And then you kind of go, you
Well,
say
then it goes,
yes.
you say yes.
Yeah,
That's
I
gotta
think that's
suck.
kind of where most people would have stopped. Is like, oh yeah, this is a kick-ass side B. Maybe we're finally going to get like a all the way through a kick-ass
They
Priest album,
should
and then you say yes comes out the speakers like
they should have put that as the second last track on side 2, and then you would have made almost all the way through, and then had one great track after it, so that you could say,
That's
well,
fair.
second last track is where you put that. They should
But
have
like
put that.
as me and Sentinel were saying from the start, like the only reason I think this album gets as much maligned as it does is because of the albums that are it's in between. I mean, this album is still
Yeah.
fantastic if you're coming off of British Steel, and the next one you release is Screaming for Vengeance.
I know. I mean, two
Two of
all-time
the
stone cold
greatest-
classics in any genre. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, you have two of the greatest metal records and possibly two of the greatest albums ever recorded.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
this one's good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, it has, as we said, it has got some standout tracks in it, though. So I guess we forget though the pressures of touring did restrict time to write and record.
Oh, yeah.
And this is probably a victim of that. Like, it's okay, we got to get an album out, but we're on a 250-date world tour.
Although, and when you look at it, they've been cranking out albums of this quality or better since '76 at this point.
Yeah, not
Because you have
everything's going to
Sad
be the
Wings,
best.
and then Sin
ever,
After
yeah.
Sin the year after, and then Stained Class the year after that, and then Hellbent for Leather, British Steel, this, and Screaming for Vengeance, and then Defenders of the Faith 2 years later.
Not a bad run.
I know, that's like 8 outstanding albums right in a row.
Not a bad run, and you're never gonna maintain that level with that volume of output. If you only made one album every 3 years, you wouldn't necessarily have a bad album ever. But this,
And if
this
you notice,
that,
bands like Sabaton come out with an album every 3 or 4 years.
yeah, so the quality is maintained. Yeah,
It's
So,
weird
yeah.
because if you look at Turbo, which is very, very similar in terms of their in terms of how this point of entry is kind of constructed and how Turbo is kind of constructed. Turbo really, I think, was a more commercial success due to the fact that you had the Turbo single and you had the popularity of the band going. That album is much worse than this one.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that overall.
Well, I'm basing it strictly on which of the two albums has songs that I am listening to
yeah, I can
again
get
and
that.
again and again.
I could get that. Yeah,
I can say that there are better songs on this record. Certainly, the high points are higher. I will say though that Turbo itself and Private Property both are excellent songs.
Private Property's okay, I would say. Turbo
Again,
Turbo,
it has that 80s synth rock sound to
Yeah,
it. But
these
it
were
was 1986. Everything did.
these were albums that were trying to capture the zeitgeist a little bit and be radio friendly in the US. I think that's
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not even necessarily capture the zeitgeist because these guys were it. Like everyone else was kind
Well,
of
they
parody.
are, but everything else
was
that's
kind of
going on
following them.
around that is still there. So they're
Yeah.
still in that environment where there's all this synth stuff, there's all this new wave stuff, there's all this stuff over
Well,
there.
it's kind
Haircut
of like we were
bands.
talking on Monday about Motorhead, where they influenced everyone they were playing alongside.
Yeah. But I mean, even people who influence everybody are influenced. It's inevitable. I mean, the Beatles didn't become the Beatles by just being created as the Beatles. They listened to Motown, rock and roll, Buddy Hill. They were influenced by all that stuff. So any band, no matter how influential, are always still influenced.
Yeah.
And sometimes they might go, you know what, I kind of like that. Rob might say, I kind of like that catchy synth thing on like what Depeche Mode are doing there. Maybe we should just kind of copy that a little bit, but disguise it, but copy it.
And they
I
were
have
hardly
no
the only
problem with
ones. I mean, ZZ Top did it with Afterburner. I mean, a ton of bands went like full synth rock and just to play around with it and see what they could do. And a lot of it's pretty high quality.
I have no when I'm comparing the two, I think Turbo itself, I would put Turbo against any song on this album and say Turbo's better. Turbo Lover specifically. And the reason I'm saying that is because of how Turbo Lover is constructed, how it uses the technology at the time to enhance the song, and but everything else on Turbo, other than Turbo Lover, I can listen to, like some of the lesser songs on this album. This album is more consistent.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
I would
It's more
say Solar
consistent.
Angels or Thunder Road, certainly, and maybe even Desert Plains, I would put up against Turbo Lover.
Hmm.
Which
Let's
one's
put it
on your
this
set
way.
list?
This is the tracks that you, if you're making a non-best album compilation, that you put on that compilation.
Yeah, this is what I would call their B tier list.
Yeah, and you put
Of
them. What I do in iTunes is I put those together in groupings. So I might have the other albums as the whole album, then I'll put those tracks and copy them and put them in a grouping
there you go.
in that playlist, and they're the best of the
That's kind of
rest.
what I do on Spotify. Is like the albums I will only listen to the full record because it's all kick ass. I will have on their own, and then the rest I have in like a rest like best of Judas Priest or
Yeah,
whoever,
it's like
whatever
the
artist.
best of the rest, best of
Yeah,
the rest. I do that with a lot of bands that have been around for a long time. I don't want to wade through 30 albums. I've got 6 that are the greatest, and then I take and I still got the other albums, but I take those tracks and put them on a
yeah.
playlist.
And that's one thing I love about Spotify is even if you don't own that album specifically, if you just like that one song, you can just put that one song on the list
Yeah,
without spending money on the rest
and
of the album.
it's kind of fun doing that. It's kind
Yeah,
of
it is.
fun looking through everything and going, that one fits on here, and that one fits.
And also, I
on here.
mean, it's one of those. At a certain point, I'm sure you're at this long ago at this point where you have to have playlists sorted by like band and genre, not even because you just have so many otherwise.
I'm lost most of the time. I've got so much
Yeah,
shit.
you just go into your library like, oh, what playlist do I want to play today? 15 minutes
Yeah.
later. Oh, is that the bottom? No.
That's right. I actually made a concerted effort a few years ago to clear out my it's mainly iTunes, because I had like multiple copies of everything, and I also had shite on there I was never going to listen to, and I cut about 6,000 or 7,000 tracks out, and I still had, I don't know, 20,000, and now I'm back up again.
Right. Well, that's always the problem with cleaning out space. We found this during the move is we'll clean out tons of space and then find something new to fill it with.
That's right. And they great, now I've got tons of space, I can add some more stuff.
Exactly.
You guys both use PC, I bet, because they discontinued iTunes. They discontinued it for Apple users, and I'm heartbroken because the Apple Music app is one of the worst,
I hate it.
shitty pieces of shit I've ever fucking dealt with. Give me Windows Media Player any day over that Apple Music fucking app. I hate it. It doesn't even give you the.
Yeah, I tend to use iTunes, but then I also have Plex, and everything is on. I play most of it through Plex. I just use iTunes to buy or download stuff and aggregate it on there. But Plex is where I play everything.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, I don't like iTunes either, but Apple Music's 10 times worse than iTunes, and that's saying something.
Yeah, I think I tried to use Apple Music for like 2 days, and I just immediately just went, no, I'm done. I'm just gonna rip all my shit to kind of an open MP3 format, keep it on my hard drive, and then everything else I'm just gonna use Spotify for.
It kept wanting me to buy shit already owned and I'd already bought, which was weird. And
then it wanted you to have a subscription, and then it wanted you to be logged in while you were streaming it, so you would use more data. It's like, F that. Fuck
Interestingly enough, Windows, not Windows Media Player, Winamp, I use that for my radio streams, and I find that a perfectly great player, even though it's an old, no longer supported.
But it does everything you need it to.
Yeah, and I can search by genres and years and all sorts of shit.
You can tell it exactly which playlists or files to go find, and it'll just do it.
Yeah. And I make playlists on it, which I then use on those shows. So Winamp was a seriously underrated player. It's a damn shame. It's still a few enthusiasts supporting it out there.
And you can make it work on modern systems too. It's just you have to kludge it in there. It doesn't work seamlessly anymore.
No, but it still works pretty good. Never use always just use there's a certain version further back that I use, and never let it update beyond that.
Yep. And that's what you have to do with some games and stuff too, is just don't let it update beyond this point because it'll no longer work.
That's right. Yeah.
Like there's a couple of games that I actually run a virtual machine on here that has Windows 7 because the last version of Windows that they worked successfully with was Windows 7.
That's right. You got to do that kind
So,
of thing.
so games like World in Conflict that I'm never going to stop playing, because that game was amazing. I have that on there, so that's like, yeah, it's totally Windows 7. This is
Speaking about physical media, you might not see my little video I did yesterday. This has nothing to do with Judas Priest, but I got the Rory Gallagher triple live LP,
nice.
and this is just a thing of beauty. When you open it up, he's got his guitar.
Outstanding.
You can see that.
Oh yeah, they got the centerfold and everything.
Yeah, and then that opens up even further.
Nice. Not that kind of centerfold. Calm down, YouTube.
Triple live album. It's from one of his last tours.
That's awesome.
It's a thing of beauty. It wasn't cheap either. It's a thing of beauty. It's just gorgeous. All the artwork, everything is just beautiful. I don't buy many of those because brand new vinyl is expensive, but just for the occasional thing, I go out and get that. And, I do play it. I'm playing it. I've got a record player behind me with through my guitar amp. I just play it through that. But of course,
so
now
don't you curse me like that? Because they will do it. They've been doing it to a lot of the anime games. They've been censoring the subtitles and also some of the dialogue.
It's just ridiculous, isn't it?
And it's not like they're doing it to new games either. They're doing it to games that came out like 20 years ago. It's like there's one thing where you just roll your eyes and be like, okay, this was a game that was released at its time, and then let it be what it is. But they're going back and like changing stuff that already existed.
They're fucking talking about editing Shakespeare and things like that because it doesn't suit Chaucer and Shakespeare and all that other stuff. They're seriously talking about editing stuff out of it they don't like.
That's when we really just need to just go no, and then start hitting people if they continue doing it, because that is, I mean, not even just culturally important.
Chairman Mao would love them. He would be applauding them all.
Yeah, it's like not only just culturally important. They changed the English language. Yes. The reason English is spoken the way it is or written the way it is because of Chaucer and Shakespeare.
That's right. They invented words. They
changed the entire syntax of the English language in some cases.
So, but yeah, because there's some stuff in there they don't like. Well, maybe Shakespeare's a bit problematic, you know.
Well, maybe he lived like 500 years ago when we didn't know any of this or have any conception of it.
These are people that are so dumb, of course, that they will ban To Kill a Mockingbird. Even though it's absolutely one of the most anti-racist books ever written for that reason, they'll still ban it because it's got things that they don't like to read.
Yeah, when I heard that argument, I'm just like, do these people realize who they're defending? Although, that being said, in the U.S., it is the same party that disagreed with that book the first time around.
That's right. It's the same, the same letter after
It's one of those.
They're the ones that book was about, really.
Like, is this some of the old beliefs coming back, or did you just find some writings from back in the day and agree with it?
That's right. And they're doing the same with, 1984 is a bit problematic, we should probably think about taking that off shelves. Fahrenheit 451, we need to ban that,
Yeah, Fahrenheit 451. I have heard people talk about banning Fahrenheit 451. Which
because
guys like us is just like,
and you call yourselves the good guys. You call yourselves the good guys, and you're banning Fahrenheit 451.
It's like they literally, unironically, will talk about banning books like Brave New World, Fahrenheit 451, and 1984, and we're just sitting here like, you're proving their point.
You're proving everything we know about you.
Yeah, they're proving them right.
It's because they don't want younger, dumber generations to see the playbook. And the playbooks.
And that's the thing. I always thought it was 1984. Turns out we are much closer to Brave New World than
we are. We are
to a scary degree
because of the transhumanism and all the other stuff like that,
and also a lot of the chemical stuff being completely allowed and all of that. But yeah, man. And the funny part is a lot of bands like this too were talking about this shit in the 80s. I mean, let's face it, Electric Eye is talking about the surveillance state.
Yeah, they nailed it.
In 1982, before they even really had a surveillance state. They were talking about, and hell, even on British Steel, they're talking about the dangers of AI with metal gods.
They've always had a surveillance state. It's just the technology has evolved to enable them to do it better.
Well, that's true, yes. That's the crazy part is in the free and open West, we have more surveillance ability than Stalin ever thought about.
Stalin and Mao would have multiple orgasms if they.
Oh, I mean,
today.
they would have absolutely
They're like,
jumped at the chance to have the kind of ability we'd have on a Tuesday.
I wanted this shit and I couldn't do it, and you guys have got it. You lucky bastards.
And they use it too.
Yeah,
it's not even like, oh, we have the technology to do it, but it's forbidden. Like, no, they just do it all the time.
Even this very conversation is problematic to them. All we're doing is talking.
Oh, of course.
And it's problematic.
And Bobin, this would be Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, the book that album is named after.
Yes, yes.
If you've never read it, I think I had to read it. Talking about change of the times, I had to read it in school.
We all read that stuff, yeah. We read Brave New World.
Nowadays, you're probably forbidden
for To Kill a Mockingbird, which was obviously slightly different, but it was seen as important subject matter. And
we had to read Animal Farm, I know.
Animal Farm, yeah. We read that too, yeah. It was all part of the high school. This is high school.
Yeah, it was just considered basic education. Hell, we did like 6 Shakespeare plays as part of our English class.
What the hell they read now, I don't know, but it's probably about.
It's probably nothing substantial.
No,
I mean, I can't think of anything to kill a mind.
Yeah.
Although I will say we did get our class was progressive enough that we got to choose which Shakespeare play we did. We had to perform one of them. We had to read out the rest. I think the one we chose was King Lear.
Ours was Midsummer Night's Dream.
That's an interesting one to play out because it's very out there. It is a lot of fun, but I think I think we could choose from Macbeth, King Lear, or
Richard III,
Julius Caesar.
Julius Caesar. I we would have chosen Macbeth just because it's Scottish. Although it's not necessarily a good. See, Macbeth is one of the most maligned because of Shakespeare. It's very maligned. He was actually a good king. It's just because he came from a different lineage from the current kings of England, and politically Shakespeare was buttering up the royals of the time. Let's put it that way.
Of course,
Macbeth. Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with that performance, though. I got to play King Lear. So I just get to act like a mad bastard.
Pretty good, yeah. I could see you as King Lear. I could see that.
Yeah, fair enough.
I like Sentinel's choice of Midsummer Night's Dream. It is one of the ones I've seen live.
Yeah, it's a very interesting play.
I saw Christopher Plummer
There's a lot of
performing in that live, which was great. You know, Christopher Plummer, who's sadly departed, of course, a few years ago, but and he was 80 and he was still magnificent in it. You know, so. I got it. You get Shakespeare much more when you see it live performed like that than you do reading it. It's meant to be a play. It's not meant to be read in that way.
Absolutely. And with that all being said, I know Sentinel's got to go. I think I have to go here. Yeah, I do have to go here. In a couple of minutes.
What?
So we
no show tomorrow for me, by the way. Just letting you know, no show for me tomorrow.
Yes,
you've got a day off.
Yes, I have a day off from doing nothing. Yes. But no, absolutely check this album out if you guys haven't. It's underrated, and I think you guys will find a lot of stuff on here to like. So absolutely check this out. And check 70s Rock Fans channel out if you haven't already, somehow. I'm on there all the time. We talk about music and movies and all that good stuff. We talked about Motorhead on Monday. For those of you who've been here a while, you know that's one of my favorite things ever.
Mm-hmm.
Good show.
And all
it was a good show.
Ever, really.
It was a great show, mate. Yeah, thanks for being there.
Absolutely, man. And thanks for being here, man. It's one of those albums I've been meaning to get to for a long time, and I just could never fit in.
Mm.
And other than that, Sentinel, what do you got going on, man?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm like booked into October 1st. I'm not. You'll see me on Twitter, just maybe, but I'm not being able to make any content. Sorry, guys.
Shit posting as per usual.
Yeah, shitload per usual.
Nice. But and 70s, you said you didn't have a show tomorrow?
I'm taking a day off tomorrow. I got a lot of personal stuff to do, and it's nice to have a break occasionally. And I think, though, the following week we'll be back with another edition of the Cult Comedy Crew. So we'll be focusing on comedy. I'm going to do Kentucky Fried Movie.
Yes,
and the Zucker, Abrams Zucker early years, you know. So they went, and that was their starter, and then they went on to make all this other great stuff. So I'm going to do that.
that's still one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff I wouldn't be able to show on screen.
Send
Catholic
him
high school.
to Detroit.
That's right. Catholic high school girls in trouble.
Yeah.
Porky's would be banned. It couldn't
right.
even be filmed today.
And
Kinda
as
good,
for me, guys, you can always find me here Sundays, usually if I'm not being an idiot, for Rock and Roll Religion. You can find me right after these streams get over on the Verdant Mint channel on Rumble for Starfinder,
Nice.
where we basically trip around the galaxy and I try to blow things up as amusingly as I can. May or may not have had a couple of Agent Orange grenades lying around. But war crimes aside, I'm going to try to get back into the random fandom stuff, or we're going to start doing rock and roll history on Thursday nights, going down, the rise of heavy metal, punk, probably the Southern rock and folk vibes too, because I'm into those scenes as well. And so stay tuned for all that.
2 weeks from now, I'm going to do Stevie Ray Vaughan on the show. Do Stevie Ray Vaughan. So that's going to be the next music one. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's going to be a fantastic show and a lot of fun to do research for too. But with that all being said, guys, thanks for coming. Thank you to my panel for being here, and to everybody in the audience. Stay safe. I love you all. I'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Keep on rocking.